All right, we are live this time. I won't make the same mistake I did last time. And it's our first live in July of 2023. I'm putting the link to the giveaway down the bottom. And those of you who are new to this, we're going to be giving out promo codes throughout this live discussion. Each promo code is worth 100 entries into our contest that ends August 1st. We'll be giving away a total of 500 today, so stay tuned. And today we're going to be talking about mobility. I think the best way to crack this off is just with a great quote by a profound creator in this space, Gray Cook, who wrote the book on movement, literally designed the functional movement screen. Movement is the basis for all exercise. If movement patterns are poor, then we add fitness on top of dysfunction. So we need to make sure we move well, or we're going to injure ourselves or prevent ourselves from feeling good. You know, a lot of times I deal with people who have shoulder pain, knee pain, hip pain, low back pain. It's kind of all one and the same. It's just bad movement patterns and bad mobility. So if you're someone who's dealt with shoulder tightness, stiffness in your neck, low back stiffness, knee pain, hip pain from time to time, then you might want to address some of this stuff. Because a lot of times it's just about getting in the right position, and then we strengthen that position. But if we don't have that position, then we're strengthening our inability to get to that position. So first place I just like to start people is just on the ground in this basic Cobra. Because the first thing we need to do is actually pull our head back. You know, our spine is supposed to have a normal S in it, but a lot of times you see people in this forward fold position, shoulders in front, head forward position, rounded upper back. It's because we are forward moving people. We work at computers, screens, we carry bags, carry groceries folded in. So we need to get here. So the first thing I want to do is get you on the ground. Cobra, think about lifting your head up, peeling your shoulder blades down, okay? Not just back, but think about sliding them as far down as you can. Because we have this muscle called our levator, and our levator can upwardly elevate our scapulas. And now when I go to rotate, I'm all trapped and I can't move anywhere. It feels like I'm trying to move through cement. If I can get my shoulder blades to stay down and attach my rib cage, then I can get range of motion without any impingement or pain. So it starts with the chest cavity. We need chest up, ribs down, head up, and then from here, try to turn your head. If you can look straight at the sky or ceiling, great. I want you to try to rotate like a corkscrew. You might feel stiffness in your neck from bad movement patterns before. Okay? And now another place to take this, I have some very little equipment here to work on mobility today. I have a dowel, I have a band, I have a ball, like a softer one I can lean up against. You can use like an ottoman or something, and I have a lacrosse ball. So with our lacrosse ball, you can be on the ground, you can be standing up against a wall. Try to do 10 circles right in the palm of your hand. Go clockwise, counterclockwise. What this is going to do is start to turn on some of the smaller stabilizer muscles in the shoulder so that we can get a static shoulder girdle so it can rotate the way it needs. Just simply being able to position my shoulder back here allows me to get those circles that I need. But if my shoulder's forward, I'm going to find that it's tough for me to get to those ranges. So a lot of that has to do with us having weak, smaller stabilizing muscles and the larger muscles having to try to do the work of the mobility. And then when we go to do something like lifting something heavy, it can come onto those smaller muscles and then get us hurt. So 10 circles in both hands. And now to step this up, now you have some feedback to squeeze and hold on to, which will help the humerus, your arm bone, stay in its shoulder socket and then work on circles. A lot of the stuff is just getting into the proper position. Again, because you're trying to water the seeds where you want them to grow. You want to water good strength, good mobility, good feeling, not pain, not tightness, not stiffness. Okay, and then switch sides. You can switch arms there. So when it comes to the head and neck, again, we have this collapsed position. We're not only just looking for up, but we're also looking to open up our chest and get what's called thoracic expansion. So that requires us, usually we have tightness in our pec here as well. So you can use a lacrosse ball for that. But what I like to do is just a T-spine rotation. So coming on the ground, it'll be easier probably to show you this way. So you want your bottom legs fully extended, your top leg is up, you're trying to have your knee on the ground, arms both extended out, top arm reaches past your bottom fingers, and then rotate out. And now from this position, I should be able to keep my knee below my hip while my other shoulder blade hits the ground. Most people can't get to this position. So anytime they're doing any pressing, they're just adding to their inability to have proper position. So they're going to eventually get to a point where they're in pain. They're going to have stiffness. They're going to have a stiff neck, stiff low back, because they don't have the proper mobility they need so that the larger muscles can take the tension. So there's something as simple as a T-spine rotation tells me that I can get that thoracic expansion that I was just showing you. And now from here, with my shoulder blade on the ground, I want to do a windmill. Can I get overhead? That's going to tell me if my levator can stay depressed on my rib cage or if it's elevating due to just due to bad patterns, right? Old habits die hard. So then what happens is these muscles are tight and they're used to staying on. So when I go to rotate in their range of motion, they'll fire on. So what happens is if I try to go overhead, sometimes people feel, or they don't even notice it, but their shoulders elevate towards their ears, and now they can't rotate any higher up. It's because, again, they got into a bad position. So always trying to keep your scapula depressed down. Next place to take this, because I like to work the top down, because our brain processing center is up here. Eyes are getting all the sensory input, and then the peripheral nervous system to the rest of the body below the neck is sending out signals. So I always like to start head down in terms of calculating where we are in space. So using something that you can put on your back, a medicine ball or an ottoman or something, like a big, maybe stack up a couple pillows. This is the end of a broomstick. I'm just doing a couple dowel passes. Coming forward, arching back, getting that S back in my upper spine. Thinking about making a half circle over this ball. Ooh, feels good. And some of you may need to do this every day for 14 days before you notice much change, because it's been so long. You know, you have to think that you were going a certain way for a period of time. If it's been 10 years since you adjust your mobility, it's not going to fix itself in one day. You know, I always like to use the analogy of two planes flying. You got both of them leaving Boston. One's headed for LA, one's headed for Seattle. And about halfway through the trip, Seattle had to make a pretty aggressive deviation in order to get down to LA. So you got to think about that. We're trying to course correct here. So if I'm going to try to course correct in the fashion of like, let me just do 5 minutes of mobility work and then let me go work out, well, your workout's going to probably regress you back to your old movement patterns. So sometimes it's smart to take time off from the weights, take time off from contracting muscles, take time off from your neuromuscular system having to engage and restrict movement. Because when we weight train, we are creating stiffness. So the same answer isn't going to be the right solution, or and the answer isn't going to be the same solution for every person. There are absolutely people who are hypermobile and they need to be doing more weight training, and there are other people who weight train too much, or their routine is too aggressive and they never give their body enough time to really rest and digest and get to a reset point, a nice stable platform of comfortable mobility, opened up fascia, good blood flow, good nutrient delivery, good waste cleanup system. So this might be something that you do for 5 minutes a day for a week and you're good. This might be something that you can do before your workouts, get good mobility, strengthen that movement pattern, shut down and go. And for others, this might be something that you have to do for like a month every day before you really notice improvements. But the grass is greener where you water it. So what do you want to do? You can either suffer the pain of discipline or suffer the pain of not changing anything. Oh, this one feels good. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here for a while. We're really just manipulating gravity to our advantage, FYI. So a couple of those dowel passes is a really good one. The next place I like to go with people is just in this tall kneeling position, being able to arch back, have those shoulder blades press on your rib cage, and can you press overhead? If you can, you're probably really good to start, at least in terms of any upper body movements. We didn't get to our hip and ankle yet, but ideally, I would be able to take that position Sorry, I just got a message from Eric. He doesn't have good Wi-Fi, so he's not going to be able to make it. All right, so ideally, we're going to be able to get to this position from a squat, and I'll be able to press overhead. So if you can do this, great, you're already like at the top of your class. But if you can't, then you have some work to do. And if you can do it without pain, right? That's the goal. Always moving without pain. So one that I forgot to show with the dowel passes and the T extension on the medicine ball is just a rotation. So T extension is just this, thoracic extension over the ball, and then rotation would be here. Trying to rotate your elbow down and other elbow up. And now you're going to be ready to do anything overhead, making sure that you're strengthening the right positions and the right muscles and not getting yourself hurt or adding to more tightness in the future. Let's see, dowel passes. Okay, so first promo code is going to be FATS123, FATS123, and we're going to move on to hip. So a lot of times people feel so much tightness around their external rotators out here in kind of the back section of our glute, and it leads to their hip tightness. This is usually due to weakness because our body's one big pulley system, and it's what's called a tensegrity structure, meaning the only reason I have structural integrity is because I have constant tension. I have muscles pulling me up, down, left, right, side to side, and it's not like bricks. It's like a bunch of sticks and a bunch of rubber bands held together. So basically, a tightness can actually be due to a weakness because it can't stand the pulling from the other muscles attached to that same area. So usually it starts with us having to kind of loosen up some of these tight muscles. I like this 90-90 seated position here. And what we do is we come up and over and rotate. And if you can do this without your hands, all the better for you to loosen up the smaller muscles around your hip that can be associated with arthritis. And the thing is with arthritis and inflammation, people, is itis is just the root word meaning inflammation. And any buildup of inflammation is just because you're basically, every time we work out, we move, we create inflammation. And our body's supposed to naturally be able to clean that out. If I have really tight and restricted fascia stuck to the muscle, it's not going to get good fluid in there. It's not going to get waste out. It's not going to get new nutrients in. So it's going to build up of inflammation. So you can think of inflammation as basically like more water is filling up in my boat quicker than I can bail the water out of the boat. So we need to improve the process of bailing the water out, but then we also got to plug the hole, meaning we got to stop the buildup of inflammation, so we can get to a point where we're out of pain. Because then what happens is people end up in chronic inflammation, and then they end up getting surgery, because when you go to your surgeon, they usually are going to recommend surgery. It's like if you go to your barber, you're going to get your hair cut. So you can absolutely, if done the right way, avoid surgery sometimes. Now, it's all different case to case, but knees are a great example. There's some people who are bone to bone, have no cartilage whatsoever, and yet they don't need to have surgery because they're not feeling any pain. There's other people who have spacing and they do have cartilage and they're in excruciating pain. They need a total knee replacement. So pain isn't even the true indicator of whether someone needs surgery or not. It's just all different case to case. And if you can move without pain and you can strengthen that ability to move without pain, then hopefully you can get out of the chronic inflammation predicament. So going side to side with these hip circles, again, is going to help loosen up some of those stiff TFL, piriformis, external rotators that associate with tight hips. And then I like doing a little basic hip circle drill. So you're in a tall kneeling position, and when your hands behind your head, you just worked on that good thoracic positioning and that T extension, that thoracic expansion. So keep that, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to try to pick your knee up out to the side, come forward, and put your foot down. And if you want to put something for a point of reference, so you have to step over, use your ball again. So it forces you to have to get to those end ranges of motion where it kind of hurts a little bit because it's weak and it's tough to keep position. And I'm even falling over a little bit. Next promo code is V and M, vitamins and minerals. VANDM. I'm going to show one more of this hip circle. So to prove to myself I can do it on this left side. Woo! All right, could have been better. But then another one you can do is then standing. I like to use something for this. Come forward, rotate the foot out, bring it back, down, and down. So from the front, it's knee to hip. It's twist the foot up to the knee height. It's peel the leg back, basically rotating back. And then from this position, bringing the knee down and bringing the foot forward. And you can go back the same way. So bring your foot up to your knee, come back, up, forward, foot down, and then step. So 2 little mobility drills there to get your mobility. When we with the shoulder, when I had you use the dowel to press overhead, it's a little bit of an activation drill. But I also really like a smaller band to force us to depress our scapula down as we press our arm overhead. So what I'm getting at here is there's muscles. It's like we got to prove the movement pattern first, and then we have to turn on the muscles to hold us there. So there's muscles that we need to activate so that we can have that better positioning overall. For example, with my hip, external rotators, hip flexor, we're trying to turn those off because they're overly engaged. For whatever reason, they can be weak. They can have fascia stuck to the muscle because of poor hydration, poor nutrient, poor recovery. And I'm showing here a hip flexor stretch because that's usually really tight on people. But then the next step for the lower body is glutes. So I'm strengthening my back and my glutes, both posterior muscles, again, because we're forward moving people. So we get so anteriorly engaged, meaning the front of our body, all that muscle gets engaged and stays tight in this folded position. So to fix that, again, we need to think about the muscles in the posterior. So back, mid-back, shoulder blade, rib cage area, and then glutes, because really what's keeping me in this position are my glutes. If I can't get here or I'm feeling my hips in this position, it's because The smaller muscles, again, are trying to do the job of the bigger muscles. So this is kind of your test. Can I do a press and squat? But from here, the best way to really activate those glutes is going to be a cook hip lift. So I'm pulling my knee into my chest. This is going to help make sure I'm inhibiting those tight hip flexors that I just showed you that stretch before. So I'm keeping my hips in a good position. And now I'm trading. I'm saying, hey, I want the glute to take this tension. Shut off this hip flexor. So sometimes people can just sit here for 30 seconds on each side, feeling the drive through their entire foot, feeling their arch stay flat, feeling the pad under their big toe, feeling that hamstring and glute, and feeling that quad start to dissipate a little bit. And then switch sides. This is a great one to hold for 10 breaths as well. Because a lot of times when we're trying to get new positions, we got to turn on our aerobic system to say, hey, we can breathe through this position. We can stay here. We're not trying to be so intense with it. I see a lot of people stretch and they're like grimacing. It's because it's too intense for them. If they're gonna tense up in a stretch, they're only gonna make it harder. Next promo code is Spinach99. SPINACH 99. And we got 2 left today. So along with the hips here, we talked about the hip flexor, and now I'll go into our hamstring. Because with the hamstring, so many people go to it first, but it's actually due to their tight hip flexors. Because in order to stretch one muscle, the opposite muscle has to relax or contract, and then vice versa. So what happens with these tight hip flexors is they pull our pelvis down, and now that lengthens our hamstring. So we feel a pull in our hamstring, and we think, oh, our hamstrings are tight, when in reality, it's our hips are out of position. Because if I can get my hip in position, my lower back flat, and my knees locked out, and my foot's over my knee and my hip, then that's good enough mobility for me to say deadlift or any other hip hinge. But a lot of times, again, people are stretching the hamstring inappropriately because they need to actually shut off that hip flexor in the front first before they're going to test their mobility of their hamstring. But then the other area that can come into play with tight hamstrings is tight calves. So pause on the calf for a second. We'll get there. I want to finish with the hips. When we are talking about hip mobility and strength in positions, we go down and we squat, but then we feel our hips. It's because they're already so tight. We have like bookends of our external rotators and our internal rotators. So we have very little wiggle room to actually use the glute. It's like we go a little too far inside, we feel our adductors. We go a little too far outside, we feel our piriformis and TFL. So we have to really open these up. So the best way to stretch, say, your adductors, I love this stretch here, this frog stretch, where I just have my knees splayed out, my toes turned out, my ankles are underneath my knees, and I'm really stretching the inside of this leg here, and especially at my groin. Another way to take this is put your hands under your feet, go ahead and squat down, push your elbows onto your thighs. I love this for warming up for squatting, for Olympic cleaning, for running. Okay? So that's a good way to get your internal rotators or your adductors, and then everyone should be familiar with the pigeon stretch. I'll just show a real simple way to get into the pigeon stretch is go into your tabletop position, okay? Take one foot, extend it back, and then step it over the other foot. And now you're simply into a pigeon position here where you can get those external rotators stretched and shut off. That's the goal. Remember, you don't want to go too intense into your stretch where you're tensing up and being defensive because you're just going to make it that much harder for the muscles to relax. And the goal is to get them to shut off and turn into like butter. So with most muscle, whether you're in it with a lacrosse ball, whether you're stretching, you have to, it's going to peak, and you have to kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable. So breathe through it. That intensity is going to come up. It's going to spike, but then it'll shut off and dissipate. because that's really the goal, is you're really overloading your brain saying like, well, fine, let's make this muscle really tight. And then eventually the brain says, okay, let's shut that muscle off. It doesn't need to be so engaged. So the last one that I wanted to show us, and before I get into the ankle calf, fourth promo code for today is EMMG23. That's Eric Menchie, my co-host, Matt Gluckman, me, and then 2023. EMMG23. I just want to say thanks to everybody for showing up today. Really means a lot. We've been spending a lot of our time trying to figure out how we can better assist our community, and that's what initially started these giveaways. But you know, we can't give away our shirt, so you know, we're getting to a point where we got to figure out a different system so that we can actually be more effective rather than giving everything out for free. You know, free just means people don't have skin in the game. They really don't stick to what they say they're going to do. You know, over this process, I've helped a lot of people just get on a free program. People who've been, you know, courageous enough to reach out and ask questions. I've been giving free programs and they just don't do them. So it's a waste of my time. It kind of hurts a little bit. You know, it doesn't make me feel good in terms of feeling effective as a coach. And doesn't make me feel like a good person in society who's actually making a lasting change and mending a part of the world that's broken. So we're going to figure out a system so that we can deliver programs via an app for like $20-$30 a month. You know, trying to keep it like $1 a day, really affordable, but still have people have skin in the game. You know, when you invest in your health, when you invest in your future, you actually take it more seriously. I think there's going to be something to that in terms of accountability. But again, I appreciate for everyone who's showing up today. It really means a lot. It allows us as coaches to do what we do best and have our sense of purpose. So calf, I love this ankle mobility drill because it's usually the calf is weak. Again, it's not doing what it needs to do. It's not pulling my hamstring down. A lot of times people are squatting and they're not even breaking parallel. So what we're doing here is I'm getting to my end range of my stretch. I'm having the band wrapped around my subtalar joint, around my ankle, and I'm trying to push my knee over my middle toe. At the same time, I'm trying to keep my foot flat, my heel flat, and I'll feel a stretch happen at kind of my soleus and my gastroc, my Achilles, and this is going to help me get into that good position with my squat so I can own this position, and then I can load up weight. It doesn't make sense for me to start weight training into these movement patterns, the most basic movement patterns, right? Like we've talked about it, I've shown in my series, you know, 7 primary movement patterns: squat, hinge, push, pull, rotation, gait, and I can't remember the 7th one. And lunge patterns. So we should be able to do those freely, but I'm not going to add weight to those if I don't do them properly with my own body weight first. So getting ankle and calf on board. I love this banded stretch here. You're going to keep your weight over your mid-thigh. That way you can really keep that collapsing happen at the ankle, the knee, and the hip. Again, almost imitating a single leg squat. If you're having really trouble with that one, you need to regress that movement down. Lay on your back and pull your foot in, okay? And you might notice, oh, I have hip tightness. Okay, so your hips are probably doing more of the work in the squat. Or, oh, I still have calf tightness. Okay, so we need to maybe do a little bit of a calf release. And it just helps you get these end ranges again. Another place I like to take this one is just sitting on something, maybe you're on a bench, and then pulling that knee in. Okay, because this is what you would be like at the bottom of a squat, potentially. Okay, and from here, try to engage your glutes. I guarantee if you can squeeze your glutes in this position, you probably feel your hips as well. Because again, they're trying to say, no. We're supposed to pull the hip flexor. And you're trying to say, no. Let's trade that job to the glutes. So from here, just doing something as simple as squeezing your glutes for 30 seconds to a minute can help that hip flexor turn off so you can get into this squat position at the bottom here with good ankle mobility and be comfortable owning this position so that you can do stuff with barbells and have fun and not get into pain and keep coming back for more. Which only if you're sick like me will you keep coming back for more. No, but the goal is to weight train for a better future so you can move well, so you can have strength, you can have more energy, you can be able to participate in hikes and kayaking or that pickleball match that you want to without feeling pain the next day because your body's strong. And yeah, so that's the key purpose of weight training. You just got to make sure that you're getting there in the right fashion so you're not going to add to more dysfunction in your body later. The key is to own these movement patterns, own these positions. I gave you a lot of different options here for helping your shoulders and neck, for your ankles, and for your hips. So gonna have my last promo code here is LIFT3X, LIFT 3X. And I will catch my breath here and give time for anyone who wants to ask any questions. Hey, thank you, WDW. I hope you have a great day as well. All right, well, since there's no more questions, or no questions, I'll let everybody go enjoy their Sunday. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you're taking good care of yourself, living for a better today and for a better tomorrow. We're going to have our final grand prize giveaway coming up in August 1st, so stay tuned. This is our Sunday live, and we also have lives on Wednesday for midweek check-ins, which we'll talk more about nutrition. Other than that, make sure you're having a good day, staying safe, and leading from the front out there, folks. Take care.